So I actually was inspired to start a podcast and have my own show. It was actually in June this year. I had this conversation with Jay Cutler,
Okay.
who, by the way, is the nicest guy you'll ever meet.
Yeah.
Super cool. I admired him a lot just because of all of his accomplishments, in bodybuilding. Even though I don't do bodybuilding, I still was like, wow, this is someone who has achieved just incredibly high levels. And we were having this conversation. He was like, Zoe, your story is so inspiring, and you should write a book and you should talk about it and you should tell people about this, right? Because I was telling him about my struggles and having lost 150 pounds and all this stuff and building my business. And so that's kind of what inspired me to do this. And I thought of you as one of the first people that I wanted to talk to just because I feel like we have a lot actually in common, a lot of similar mindsets, probably kind of similar journeys in our own spaces. And so, we're both moms. You founded this company, Beauty by Earth, and have run multi-million-dollar e-commerce, own medi spas, right? So I wanted to talk to you about several things, but one of the things that I thought we should talk about is work-life balance, being a mom. How do you deal with that?
Yeah. So I guess when I started my first business, which was Beauty by Earth, I was working a 9 to 5 job. My husband was in the California Highway Patrol. He was somewhat new in the California Highway Patrol, didn't have a lot of seniority, so was on the worst schedules, working nights and weekends kind of thing. So when I had the kids, the first one, I was still working a 9 to 5. When I got pregnant with the second one, also still working full time, and pretty much most days was single handing the kids because my husband was at work from 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. every day. I never had it any other way, I guess. So it was, we couldn't afford a nanny at the time. It was just a necessity thing. Like it's sink or swim, and I needed to swim. I had two little kids. Then, so I started Beauty by Earth. My first son was like 2.5. My second son was maybe a few months old at the time. I was still nursing him. My older son had developed really severe neurological disease. Um, that was very time consuming for me and very distracting at work. And I told my workplace, I said, listen, it's not fair to you that I'm still working here. I need to go on my own because I'm so distracted and I need to dedicate time to figuring out how to cure him.
Yeah.
It was like debilitating stuff. So and then sort of in that journey of figuring out like what was I going to do about my kid who had all these seizures, it was like one thing was, okay, let's look into the products that we're using in the house. I was already an organic eater, like very health focused person anyway. This sort of was a catalyst to take that to the next level. So I started Beauty by Earth as a two-pronged approach. One, to get products that were affordable to most people, and were truly clean, because the brands that I thought were clean and were using at the time based on their marketing, I realized were not, in fact, actually clean. So that was sort of the catalyst for starting Beauty by Earth, in addition to the fact that I really needed to focus on curing my kid. Um, I didn't have help as a parent. I still had to do all the drop offs and packing lunches and cooking dinner and all of this by myself. So I guess it just started that way and then it never kind of ended. And then as my business grew and as I added an additional business and another business, it all just kind of started piling up. And again, my necessity was just like, well, I guess I have to do all of this now too, right? And my husband had to keep his job at the time because you don't make money when you're first starting a business. All the
Right.
money you make goes into, reinvesting to make the business bigger. We weren't taking money out. And so it was like he was paying our bills. He covered our health insurance through his job. And I was here on the side trying to like make something go. I had no plan B. So it was like, this has to work. and it kind of just went from there. And now, like, the kids are a little bit older, 10 and 13, they're a little more self-sufficient. I mean, they still have to get dropped off at school and have lunch packed and all that, but um I basically started, like, I just work out early in the morning before they wake up. I'm back home, I pack their lunch still, they go to school. I work while they're at school, and then I make time. I still cuddle them at night before they go to bed and all of that. So I just kind of fragment my day into what's important during that time. And I'm still very, very involved in the weeds in my businesses.
Yeah.
So it's not like, oh, people just take care of it and I don't really have to work. No, I definitely am involved in every aspect of both of the bigger businesses. And that's just like, there's no other choice.
I can relate to that. I like what you were saying about, like, you had that necessity.
Yeah.
I think that it's hard for anyone to really build anything from scratch. And there was something that I thought of. It's like, instead of using your kids as an excuse not to, they're your why. They're
Right.
the why that you're making all of that happen. For you, when you were starting your businesses, was there a timeline or a turning point for you when you feel like, okay, now you can leave your 9 to 5?
No, I left my 9 to 5 right away.
Really?
I didn't keep my job because I knew I needed to. I think it's hard, honestly, when people try and start a business while they're still working a 9 to 5 because they still have something to fall back on.
Okay.
When you quit your job and you're not making any money, the necessity to build something else is just exponentially greater than it would be if you were still making income at another job. Now, that would be impossible for a single income family. And I've also come to realize over the years that not everybody is meant to be an entrepreneur
Yeah.
or is naturally of the mindset that it takes, and the work ethic and the grind that it takes to build a business, because it doesn't fall out of the sky. It
Yeah.
takes a lot of work. It takes I mean, I did all of the R&D, I did all the customer service, I did all of the market, I did everything.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's like, "Oh, it magically started doing well." No, it was all my doing.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a turning point because I fully quit my job and had 0 income
Yeah.
when I had a fairly good, I was making 6 figures at my 9 to 5 job for years,
Wow.
so it's not like I was, not making money, but I just walked away from it because I knew I needed to work for myself. um, I'm not a yes man, and so that doesn't really work as being an employee, my
Yeah.
type of personality. They don't want entrepreneurs, they want yes men. So, I knew that I needed to just do something long term for the family, and, like, we wanted to move out of California. I knew I needed to replace my husband's income in order to get him willing to do that.
How long, this might be a stupid question and completely difficult to answer, but how long do you think, like, working at the level that you did, how long did it take for you to replace your income?
Probably, I mean, the business started making money,
Mhm.
year 1,
Okay.
but if you don't, we bootstrapped, so we
Right.
didn't take loans, we didn't have investors, we still to this day own 100% of our business. So, in order to do that, how do you get money? You have to leave the money in the business, so I really didn't take a paycheck at all for about a year,
Okay.
like, nothing.
Okay.
Then it was like, okay, we should start paying ourselves something to make it worth our while. But then we took like $4,000 a month,
Okay.
like just enough to, like, okay, I'm paying myself $25 an hour,
Yeah.
and then basically as we could, while still allowing ourselves to scale and still leaving the majority of the money in the business, just taking every year we sort of gave ourselves a little raise. Um, So that's how we funded the business. That's how, probably like year 2, 2.5, something like that. The business was sort of cruising at this point. and we were paying so much in taxes to California that I was like, it's time to leave now. So, and between my husband's income and what I was paying, like the difference was not very great anymore. And so we knew, okay, it's time to move to a no income tax state.
Yeah, that makes
So we did
sense.
that.
I like what you were talking about in regards to scalability because I think that's actually very real for a lot of people. Not everyone is going to be able to get a bunch of money or an investor or borrow a bunch of money to get started. So I think that's a really important thing. And I would imagine a lot of people get that wrong and they never actually build their businesses big enough because they don't just put it right back in and let it grow. So I thought that was a really cool part of your story.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many ways to, skin the cat, if you will. Like, I know a lot of people who have taken on SBA money or private investors and given away equity or whatever, and have different people have different levels of comfort with debt. My partner and I in Beauty by Earth both, luckily, are not comfortable with debt. And, sometimes I look back, especially after talking with other people in business, and go, we could have scaled faster with a little bit more cash flow. We could have taken on debt. We could have taken on a line of credit earlier in the business to like really be able to crank things faster. But it just was not our own comfort level, and I wouldn't have been able to sleep at night. I hate owing people money. So for us, it was just the best way to do it was just leave the money in the business, you know, be a little tight in our personal spending and finances in the meantime and just make it roll with knowing the end goal is up the line. It won't be so tight.
So where are you headed now?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I would say that, eventually we plan an exit for our business. We've talked about like what does that goal look like? What is that number we want to hit? And it moves every year, right? Because inflation and you see the possibility that's much bigger than what you're doing now. You're like, "Oh, next year I'm going to crush it." So I don't want to sell too soon. And truthfully, like if you talk to people who've been around in this D2C space a lot longer than I have, there's never a good time to sell. It's either too soon or it's too late. So it's kind of like you have to just be like, okay, what do I need in the end and work back from that number. And it just has to make sense with the economy and all the things that are going on of being the right time. And then like it's never the end for me. Like I'll just do more businesses and I have like a bunch of other spaces that I want to get into. I really have a problem with like, oh, this type of business and that type of business and I have to like keep myself reeled in sometimes. But I'll just keep going, but I do like I've been at this grind now for 10 years in D2C and I do want to take a step back for a little while because I only have my kids at home for so much longer. And so I want to not work. I definitely want to work, but I don't want to have to be working like 8 to 10 hours a day. I want to work 4 hours.
What do you feel the biggest obstacles you faced were in building your business?
Probably not knowing marketing beforehand because marketing, I see so many brands and the founders or co founders are marketing people before they were brand people. Either they worked at an agency, they had an agency, they were media buyers, they did something in the marketing space. And I feel like those people are so lucky because they're going into the brand already knowing like half the battle. And in our space, it's all about customer acquisition and having a good product, obviously. But acquiring customers, advertising, and this sort of thing is such a huge piece of the puzzle. And I would say my co-founder and I, neither of us came from a marketing background. I was an exec before. He was in like distribution and um, logistics. Great for business, not great for marketing. And so it's hard to hire people when you don't know who's a good marketing person, right? And there's all these other things that are marketing related. That's been our like biggest struggle area. Um, and then, we had some like silly mistakes early on. We got sued a couple of times. And at times when that happened, I thought, "Oh, this is the end. Like the ship is sinking, you know." But it's not. There's a lot of people out there, unfortunately, who just want money for nothing and create these bogus lawsuits and whatever, and it's ridiculous. Um, I believe in karma, so we just have to like keep on going and like not let this feel like the ship is sinking. But the first one was like early days, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is the end. And I got sick for 5 weeks, like so sick. Then you talk to your lawyer and they're like, okay, it's not a big deal. Like this happens to everybody. And you're like, oh, okay. Like, which lawyer do you call? We didn't have legal counsel at the time. So there's definitely been challenging experiences and lessons learned along the way. But we just now have people that are professionals at that stuff and we don't have to deal with it.
What did you get sued for?
Well, we got sued. At the time, we sold a sunscreen product, and on Amazon, in the title of the name of the product, it was called natural sunscreen. And it is a natural formula, meaning we use like natural and organic ingredients in it. But the person claimed it was not natural because it contains zinc oxide, which is a mineral. And it was totally ridiculous. If we would have litigated, we would have definitely won. But, you know, people are greedy.
What would you say to people that are just starting their business?
I would say that it's a lot more expensive today than it was 10 years ago to start a business. I would say that it was a lot of late nights at the beginning. It was working all day, making dinner, putting the kids to bed, going back to my office till 1 o'clock in the morning for a couple of years, honestly. And then I was like, okay, this is not sustainable. We have to like segment our day, compartmentalize time. And like after 5 p.m., I'm a mom now. It was hard. The kids were little. I was nursing still. I had to lay with them to put them to bed. Like there was just very little me time at the beginning. And there's definitely a lot of sacrifices that go on a personal level. But you also have to realize going into it that that doesn't go on forever.
Do you have any regrets?
There were definitely times that I should have been more present, mostly in my marriage, I would say. I kind of business and the kids were first. My husband was on the back burner for quite a while. It definitely was not easy on our marriage because already having little kids is difficult on your marriage. Your husband's used to all of your attention and now it's like, well, the kids are way more important than you. Why do you want so much of my attention? But they still do. And so it definitely took a couple of years to figure that out to be like, okay, my marriage is one thing, my kids are another thing, and my business is another thing. And these things don't go together. They're totally separate, and you have to make time for everyone individually. So, like, we started putting in date nights at least once a month, even though that's not a lot. Like, it was a lot compared to what it was before. So, like, really making time for your partner, making time for your kids, and making time for your business, all independent of each other.
I can totally relate to that too. I would say that, probably the downfall of my marriage had a lot to do on that really extreme part of where I had a lot of growth in my business. And when I look back, I neglected it. How did you get yourself back on track?
I realized things were not doing well
Yeah.
in my marriage. And, I guess I had a little like come to Jesus with myself about like, it's going to be over if I don't turn something around or change something. So, and there was a few times to be perfectly honest that happened. where I was just like, okay, apparently I didn't fix it enough, or you know what I mean? Things like that. So, um, and then I think also like my husband's now very involved in my businesses. So, he's not like off working some other job. He's in my businesses as well. And I think that that also helped because now it's like a team effort. It's not just like, well, you have your thing and I have my thing. We have our thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like a total create together. So you're not living separate lives.
Yeah. Did your husband work a
We've
different job?
never we've never did anything together. We
Okay.
lived parallel lives for like the entire time we were together.
Okay.
So I was never involved in his business. He was never involved in my business. We always had separate finances. When I look back, I think that that was a big mistake.
Yeah.
Never having combined anything. It made it easy to a degree to end it, which kind of sucks. I mean,
Yeah.
it's never easy, but
Sure.
yeah, when I look back, I think that was the biggest thing. I did try, but I don't think I did enough to really try to get him involved in what I was doing, or vice versa.
Yeah. I
We're
mean, we
very, very
had,
opposite,
yeah.
very, very opposite. But I do feel like there could have been a way that combining that would have been a very good create.
Yeah. We definitely like, our finances have been together since we were dating. So and we were both broke as shit. So it's like, it's not like there was ever like, oh, he made more than I did or whatever. There was no inequity. So we just, from the beginning, everything was split. Um, and I think, over the years, like there was times where I made more money than him. There were certainly times that he made more money than me. Like, for example, when I started my business, I wasn't making any money. So, and people have asked me many times, like, doesn't it bother him that you make more money than he does? And I'm like, why would that bother him? And I think people have asked him that too. Like, isn't that emasculating? Why the heck would that be emasculating? It's like we're a team. We both have completely different roles in the business and in the family. But in the end, we're one unit as a family, and everything that we both contribute to goes towards that. So, why would this be emasculating or upsetting?
I think it would only really be that way when you do have a partner that is not pulling their weight and not wearing their hat,
Right.
right? Because I think in some couples that is the case, where you do have someone who is not really also doing the other parts of their job they should be doing.
Right.
Like if you have someone that makes all the money and then the other guy stays on the couch all day, but that's not what you've got at all.
No, and I think at that point you need to have a real conversation with the
Yeah,
person and be like, "Yo, something
this
needs to
is not
change here."
working.
Yes.
So we were talking about this actually before we sat down, and it was how we're not feminists in any way, which is really interesting because there is like this boss babe kind of movement and the feminist
I
stuff.
can't with the boss babe stuff. Like I literally have unfollowed people because I'm like, I don't understand it. It's so off-putting to me.
Yeah.
It's like I believe we all have opportunities and you can either find your opportunity and roll with it or be a victim. And I'm not a victim. So why would I be like, "Oh, this and that, and women power." Like, no, we all have power. You just have to flex it, you know? And I don't believe that that's writing boss babe on an Instagram post. Like that's not how you prove your worth to anybody, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it's just a narrative people like to tell themselves. Maybe they've seen it somewhere or whatever to make themselves feel better about themselves. But where they'll really feel empowered is if they go out and like have success. Then you don't have to prove anything to anybody.
The biggest thing I see is really like it's a mindset. And it's like anything that has a victim mentality attached to it is just not a winning mindset.
Right.
Regardless of how difficult things were or what you had to go through, it was just kind of like, no, I just got to do it. I don't really have a choice. I'm just going to do it. And you just had a positive way of kind of pushing through everything.
Right. And in the end, like someone supported us to either allow us the time to grow a business. Like, it's so funny. Like there's one particular person I think of, like, um, where the husband is, like, completely out of the picture. And if you ask the person about it, it's like, "Oh, I don't have to ask him for approval." Like, yeah, who watches your kids and who made money while you were broke grinding, right? Like your partner had to step up and like my husband, he had to make all the money. He had to really help as much as he could with the kids to allow me the time to grind. Like or we live at home with our parents and our parents loan us money to start our business or whatever the individual case may be.
I like that. I
Yeah.
don't agree with this concept of like self-made because I don't. No one really is self-made. It really is a team
Right.
that that makes that happen. So
Right.
that's real to me too.
At least in the majority of the
Yeah,
cases. Yeah.
mostly. You know what's really funny? Talking about the feminist subject, like, I have my own business and I really have built a lot. I mean, I do believe that I wouldn't be where I am if I didn't have my team, if I didn't have the people that, my business partners, the people I work with, the people that work for me.
Right.
So I really consider myself team made, not
Sure.
self made. And even though I run my own business and have my own income and have my own corporation and multiple streams of income, I still don't really consider myself like a boss babe or have a feminist thing. Like in my own mind, I'm still just a woman
Right.
that wants a man to be somewhat dominating at times,
Right.
not in a bad way, but like I still have that feeling and I really respect the role of a woman. And I am completely am fine with women that want to be housewives and do a really good job. In fact, I really look up to, I mean, we have some people, local community that I'm just like, wow, they really put so much create into their job
Yeah.
as a mom and a wife. And, it always makes me
I
want to do
long for
more.
that in some regards. And in
Yeah.
some cases, I'm like, oh my God, I'd go crazy.
Yeah.
Like, I wish I could make those amazing meals and have time to like be so involved in the kids' school and all this stuff. And then a part of me is like, would I really? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's so different.
I can relate. I think that I just have specific skill sets and it just sometimes I look at it and I'm like, my time is better spent there.
Right.
Like I'm a great cook. Like I
Me
cook
too.
really well.
Yeah.
Terrible at cleaning. I don't clean. Like
Oh, I'm good at cleaning. I just don't make like, there's people for that.
it's yeah. Well, I mean, I have someone come to my house every week
Yeah.
to do my dishes, my laundry, all that stuff, but I can cook, but it literally looks like a hurricane went through my
Right.
kitchen every single time. And it's really funny. Like I've figured out like my different like quirks. Like I can do my makeup, but I can't do my hair for shit, like at all.
Right.
So I worked out, I have a blowout package and I go once a week.
Right.
And then I never really have to do my hair ever.
Yeah, some
Otherwise,
stuff must be outsourced.
it's well, because otherwise I would be bad at it and it would probably take me like 1 to 2 hours.
Right.
Right. And I'd still get a really bad job on it. So, I mean, I think I look at it and in my mind, I'm a girl. I'm totally a female. I'm not like trying to replace a man
Right.
or be a man in any way in what I
So
do.
what's different in your new relationship that you're in now? What have you changed compared to like whatever your learnings were from your marriage?
So this relationship has challenged me. And it has not been very easy for me
Yeah.
because I don't think I'd ever been in a relationship that wasn't two parallel lives
Right.
where I was basically like, I get along really great with my ex and like we have an amazing relationship and we're friends and
Right.
I consider him one of my best friends and I can confide in him, but we just never created a real relationship. So with this one, when I went into it, I actually it was like hard for me because I was like, oh, I'm supposed to be like
A woman.
a woman. I'm supposed to like do all these things and like have it pointed out to me that I need to be like more aware.
Yeah.
Like,
Of other people?
well, I mean, I am of my friends,
Right.
but on this particular area, like I was just completely, and I don't know. I actually feel like I was raised by a single dad, who never had anyone there.
Right.
And my mom, I'm great relationship with my mom now. And my mom's awesome. But
Right.
anyone who knows her knows she's like the most fun. She's like 16 years old and never got past that. She's like
Right.
everyone loves her. She's super fun, but she's not really a mom, right?
Right.
So like I look at that and I'm not as an excuse, but just as an understanding for myself. Like I never had an example of what a relationship really was.
Right.
And then my first relationship was my first relationship.
Right.
And, I met him when I was 17. I got married and then we were married for like 16 years.
Yeah.
And, it's really interesting. Like I just was in this relationship. It was a good relationship, but it wasn't really like a normal or what is normal, but it wasn't like
There
a
isn't really, I mean, look, everybody's relationship is so
yeah.
different.
Yeah.
There's no two relationships
No,
alike.
it's
And
true.
every man has different expectations and different
Yeah.
needs and
Yeah.
things like this. And my husband, like, I need to be all over him and telling him how great he is. And like, he wants attention. And if he
Yeah.
doesn't get it, it's upsetting to him. And we've been married 18 years, it hasn't changed.
I think that I need to get better.
Yeah.
I think if there's any point that like because I don't need that.
Right. Me either.
I don't need that at all. In
Yeah.
fact, I'm really funny. Like I don't think that I'm a cold person, but too much touchy-feely, whatever, like it's not to be like weird, but it's not like particularly my love language, I
Me
guess,
either.
physical touch.
Yeah.
Not that I like intimacy, physical intimacy, but
Yeah.
I don't need to cuddle all the time and I don't need words of affirmation all the time and I don't need to like get all of
Same
that.
with me. Like, I'm like, I want my space.
I'm good.
But my husband wants all of that.
Yeah.
He
I do
wants
like
physical
gifts.
touch.
I do like gifts.
I'm not even a gift person.
I am. Well, I'm a giver, receiver. Like
Yeah.
if I was to choose what my love language is, it's that. Like
Yeah.
you know that I love you if you get surprises from me or little gifts, or I'm like, hey, let's go out to dinner, or let's do something, or I send you something randomly, or I think of you, or whatever.
Yeah.
Like
I'm
that's
like,
100%
don't
me.
waste money on flowers or chocolate. Don't make me gain weight
Oh my
and
gosh.
flowers will die. Do not waste money, especially if it's our money. but I understand.
I see you on that because I would rather go and experience something or
For
have
sure.
fun or do a
Yeah.
trip than flowers or anything like that.
Right.
But I like an occasional pair of Chanel earrings. Is nice. He's bought a lot of those for me.
I feel like he's all over you. He's definitely
really
giving
is.
you the gifts.
He is. He does that really well.
Yeah.
So I think I'm learning to be I'm learning to be in the relationship that he wants too.
Right.
So I think with any relationship you have to kind of, meet in the middle somewhere. You have to make sacrifices sometimes.
It's not a natural thing
No.
to have to coexist with somebody, with
Yeah.
anybody.
Yeah.
Sibling, children, it
Yeah.
all is difficult.
Yeah.
It's like it's hard to live with anybody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's the same thing, but like at the same time, I find myself like if I didn't have a partner, probably for a minute I'd be like, "Oh, hell yeah, this is awesome," of the independence and whatever, and then it would be very lonely.
How do you balance that? Do you take time for yourself and do like things?
Well, we have a lot of similar interests, so we both love working out. We both love playing sport. We do a lot of it with the kids too. We both absolutely love our kids. And we have sat next to each other in the office, like our desks are right next to each other for years now. So we do see a lot of each other. So he was like, date nights? Like, what do we talk about? We talk all day long, And I'm like, we talk about things other than work, but we're both, it's either work or the kids, right? So we try and we do walks after lunch or and honestly, he has to drag me out most of the time, away from my desk. I cook him lunch every day. The guy doesn't know how to make his own lunch. So I have to make him lunch every day. So little things like this, he prefers my cooking over just about anything else. So I make dinner every night. We sit down together and eat dinner and outside of that, outside of going to a restaurant, we actually would rather go play pickleball together or you know what I mean?
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. I think that's a pretty good thing for me to actually think of, things that we can do together.
Yeah. I mean, look, even a bike ride or
Yeah.
it's it's stuff like this, like, it's the little things that you just making time and thinking about them, like, my husband's like, "You need to think about me more."
So I was upsetting Brian because I wasn't like telling him I was going to leave the house, like when I would leave in the morning. And
Yeah,
I was like, what am I doing wrong? Like, it's work hours. I'm just going. And I just wouldn't acknowledge him or something.
right.
And I was upsetting him every time. And I was getting so frustrated with myself because I wasn't intentionally causing that, you know?
And it's so easy to just stop by and give him a kiss and say, "Hey, I'm going to the
Right.
office."
And it just
Yeah,
wasn't even because was so used to just being drilled in. Like, I'm always sometimes and when I'm in my zone, in my work zone, I guess I would call it my work zone, I literally just don't think about anything else. I'm like, I'm going to my car. I know I'm like running 5 minutes behind already, or I'm just on time.
right,
And so there's been like little things like that that I've been like having to like make myself aware of.
right.
And it's
Check
not
yourself.
even I don't even feel like I'm an asshole by
Right.
nature. It's just like stuff that I just don't think about because I don't need
But it's
that.
like, why do you think about your business and being on time to that
Yeah.
and not think about your relationship?
I know, and then he's like, "This doesn't matter," and it becomes like this battle between him and in the business or something like that,
Right.
which it shouldn't be. But anyway,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I guess this ended up being like a couples counseling session. I started doing couples counseling. I'm like, how can I be a better at my relationship and
Yeah.
cause less upset?
But relationships are important.
Yeah, it's true. I think I am better with my friend relationships for sure than I
Yeah.
have been with my
Because in the
romantic
end, like, it's
relationships.
funny, I was at, a conference recently with some, like, incredibly successful nine-figure business owners, like, just really and most of them very humble also. And one of them was saying to me, it was he's the owner of Simple Modern, they make, like, water bottles and stuff like this. And, he was saying to me that he still drives like a Honda CRV. And he said the reason for that is because if he were to pull up to the office in a fancy car, it would make him seem inaccessible or like at a different level than his staff. And he wants to be incredibly relatable because he's like, if I have all that money, what is all that money without my relationships? I'm not going to be happy. Like no amount of money buys you happiness if you don't have the relationships, right? Like you can be a billionaire and have no friends cuz you're just an ass
Mhm.
and you are miserable. But if you think about other people and you think about your relativity to them, how they view you. Are you relatable? Are you within their realm of conversation? It just makes your relationship with people that you love so much stronger. And then if you have money on top of that as well, like, okay, now you can really be more happy.
I can see that.
Yeah.
I can see that.
And when he told me this, I was like, you are such a cool dude. Like, he was walking around the show in a backpack just with his jeans, and I was like, "That's my kind of person." Like
I wish I could do that in my business. I wish I could do that in my business. Do you know the moment I went and I bought my Mercedes, the day, my AMG Mercedes, that day, some guy on Instagram was like, "Why would I take advice from someone who drives a Hyundai?" And I was like, "First of all, it's a Honda. Secondly, my Korean grandfather told me to buy Asian because it's dependable. And I love it when something, and at this point in my career, like I have a seven-figure business, but I'm driving a Honda and I never drove anything else and I had no complaints, right?
yeah.
But I don't know. I can see that makes total sense what you said, but in my business, it doesn't
They
suit
think you're
me.
broke or
They think
whatever.
I'm broke, they won't talk to me, they won't take advice or whatever. So
Yeah.
I just, like, fully embraced it, and then when I drove an AMG Mercedes, I was like, "I will never go back to a Honda." It's like you've been ruined
I
now.
drive a glorified Honda. I drive an Acura.
Right.
But then again, I'm in a different type of business where I am not the brand. Like people like how I live, what I buy is nobody's looking at that, right? I'm not giving financial advice. I am selling you clean skincare products. And I do live the natural life where I can be an authority point on health and wellness and this sort of stuff. But that doesn't mean I have to be like look some certain way, or I'm much more relatable to people without makeup, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's so interesting being in different businesses because, you look at people, there's a lot of people that are fronting and they're faking and they're just
All the
pretending.
gurus.
Oh, yeah, almost all of them.
Yeah,
And then there are a lot of really wealthy people that buy luxury brands,
right.
and then there's a whole class of people that are like, if you buy those brands, you're fake because really wealthy people don't need to. And I'm like, that's not really true. I think it has a lot to do with, does it suit them?
Right.
And do they like it?
Right.
Like, I don't know. I love Chanel. Like,
Yeah.
I do. I love all the earrings, the brand, the style. It's very like throwbacky for me
Yeah.
and very classy.
Retro-y.
There's something about it, and it's just my aesthetic. And it's really
Right.
funny because I don't like LV. Like, I hardly anything. I don't like hardly anything from every once in a while I'll find something. But then I'll find something at Target or like somewhere else that I'm like, I love this. So I'm not even particularly like a brand whore, so to speak, right? But it just happens to be that I like it, right? But it was really funny. I went through this whole process of kind of like seeing which brands would be really good for me to kind of collect or whatever. And I
Right.
really settled on Chanel costume jewelry because this is a really weird fact, but like all of my stuff, if I get bored of it and I want to flip it, I can get exactly what I paid for it
Yeah,
or
it's like a
more.
Rolex.
Yes. Now, not every luxury brand is like that, but I
Right.
found this like sweet spot in this area that I really love. So for me, like I can just recycle or hold on to it and then resell it
Right.
later. And if it's like if I've had it for a long time, sometimes I'll get 4 times as much as
Yeah, it's now antique.
now it's like a side thing for me. Like I make an extra like I don't know, 25, 50,000 a year just moving my accessories.
Right.
But it didn't start off that way. There was a little trial and error on that, but I don't know. It's funny. It's like this hobby that became kind of like a little side thing for me where I kind of like dug into it. Did
Yeah.
did you ever run into that with anything that you
I
done?
can't say there's really any I'm not like a physical stuff person at
Yeah.
all. I spend my money differently. I
Yeah.
spend my money on like trips, vacations, experiences with the kids, like that sort of thing. Um in general, I would say my husband and I are both like, as you know, as our financial person, we're pretty frugal people. We live well within our means. And it doesn't mean that we buy everything that we want. We buy. Like there's not like, but we don't we're not neither of us are super into like fancy stuff, luckily, I guess.
It can
And
be expensive.
but we like trips, and if we go on a trip, we want to be able to do fun stuff, and like that costs money, and so we'll splurge on a couple family vacations a year, this sort of thing with the kids that they has memories for them too. So that's kind of more how we spend our money, and I like to have a good amount of money for just like businesses. Like, oh, what if I want to start another business? Like that takes cash.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I prefer travel and experiences over everything. I mean,
Yeah.
I almost feel like my retirement is going to be just like a travel blogger or something.
Just go live in Europe for
Well,
a
I
couple.
love it. Like I just went to New York and I saw like 3 Broadway shows and I did all these Michelin food experiences. And honestly, the best food experience I had besides Masa, which you recommended,
Yeah.
that was excellent. Maybe some of the best food I've ever had.
Yeah.
Chelsea Market, $5
Been there too.
Japanese curry taco will
Yeah.
change your life. $5. That is the best price to value food I ate in
I
New
ate
York.
at Chelsea Market like
Oh my
3
God.
times.
I was like, this is the best $5 I've ever spent.
yeah.
That was incredible. Like, so sometimes my mind is blown on just the simplest things.
Yeah. And honestly, it's like sometimes, like for me personally, like it's not necessarily the fancy things in life, it's the who you're doing it with,
Yeah.
what you're doing.
Yeah.
Are you doing things that you love to do? is that experience, does it bring you just like complete and utter joy, right?
Yeah.
For me, I love traveling with friends. I love traveling with my like business family, like other business owners who we speak the same language. We have the same struggles, that sort of thing. I love traveling with the kids. Kids trips are very like adventureful. I always have to be doing something. And like for me, even if I was broke, like if I spent any money, it would be on those sort of things.
I'm with you on that. What's your
Yeah.
favorite place to travel?
Ooh, it's a good question. Mexico over the last like since having the kids, and them being little and not wanting to like change their schedule and time zones and all this, Mexico's been really good because there's a lot to do there, and it's like in the same time zone and it's a fast flight. So you don't, if your baby's screaming, it's only for like an hour and a half.
Right.
So that's been very convenient, but we've sort of OD'd Mexico now. We've gone like a million times. So we're now venturing out to other places.
Where do you think you're gonna go next?
Europe. More Europe.
I really want to do the whole, all of it. I've never actually. I was 15 months old when I went to England, but that doesn't count.
We've definitely done England because my brother lives there. So we've done
Yeah.
England. We just went in August, actually. Not my most favorite place, but
No.
it's an experience.
Yeah, my daughter wants me to take her to Japan, so I've got a lot of things on my travel list.
Yeah.
I also want to try. I want to go to like all these places. That's a huge, huge thing for me. So I'm a
Yeah.
big traveler.
Get on it.
Wow, I mean, this is so great. I had such a fun time talking to you. I actually got a lot out of this. It's always fun having a great conversation and
Yeah.
learning things we never knew before. So, Prue, before we wrap up, where can people find you?
So people can check out our clean skincare and tanning and bath products on beautyByEarth.com. We also are widely available on Amazon. So if you just search Beauty by Earth on Amazon, you can find all of our luxurious stuff.
Well, thank you so much for being on my show today.
Of course.
Okay.